Scoring in the NBA is absolutely insane. And whether you think it's completely rampant and has gone out of control, or whether you're like me and you're like, I like scoring in the NBA. It's very, 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 very entertaining to watch. I'm sure that everybody, and I mean everyone who watches basketball, has some sort of crazy, ridiculous opinion on it. But of course, before I get into it, like, subscribe, notification bells, help me a little bit. I would really, really appreciate that. But let's get right into it. Now, throughout the past week, we have had these 4 games. Luka dropping 73 points, the most since Kobe's 81-point performance. Joel Embiid dropping 70. Booker dropping 62. Cat dropping 62. That is 4 60-plus point nights in less than a week. And it's crazy because all of them happen on significant dates. Embiid and Karl-Anthony Towns had their games on Kobe Bryant's 81-point anniversary, and Luka and Devin Booker, they did it on Kobe Bryant's death anniversary. You know, he passed away in January of 2020, so that's when Luka and Devin Booker did it. Now, before these days, I'd rather say, the NBA had not had 2 players drop over 60 points on the same night since the 70s. It has happened twice in 1 week, as already mentioned. Now, scoring and skill in the NBA, it's greater than it has ever been. It's evident, if you ask me. And if you don't think so, well, let's just go back. Now, in 1994, just about 30 years ago, this was when Jordan had retired. There were only 5 players in the league. 5 in the whole league, averaging 25 points per game. Those 5 players were David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, Dominique Wilkins, and Karl Malone. 5 players averaging 25 a game. Let's fast forward into the dead ball era. 2004, 20 years ago. In 2004, there was one NBA player. That's why they call it the dead ball era. There was one NBA player that averaged over 25. That was a prime Tracy McGrady, averaging 28 points per game. All right, well, since you're not convinced yet, let's go to 10 years ago. 10 years ago, only 5 players averaged over 25 points per game. That's KD, LeBron, Carmelo, Kevin Love, and James Harden. And boy, do I miss prime Kevin Love. Now, to give you a outlook on just how incredible this is, in 2024, there are 4 players averaging over 30 in the NBA. There are 16 players averaging over 25 in the NBA. There are 47 NBA players that are averaging 20 plus points a night. 47. And a lot of you are going to ask, how in the world is all of this happening? How are players scoring so much? Well, NBA teams in general and total are averaging the most points since the 1968 NBA season. That's 56 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, my parents were not born yet. My family, my immediate family was not even on this earth. They were still non-existent. That's how long ago this was. Not to call my parents old, but this is how long ago this was. 56 years is a long time. Now, teams are also shooting an average of 47.5%, which is the best mark since 1992. Of course, besides last season, in which they shot pretty much the same. Now, teams are dropping 106 points per game on 3 less shots. They're dropping 106 a game on 3 less shots back then, on 10 less threes. Teams are leaving 30 points on the board back in the 90s. In 1992, I will say it again, teams were averaging around 106 points, because in 1992, that was still, Magic's time. There was still a little bit of Bird's time. It was the tail end of it. But it was when the NBA was a running league. It was when the NBA was a league that was, it valued transition. Everybody wanted to move the basketball. It was a lot of passing. These teams were averaging 106 points per game on 3 less shots and 10 less threes. Now, think about it this way. Teams today are shooting the same percentage as they did back then, but they are making 10 more threes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 30 points. That's part of the explanation on why scoring has been completely ridiculous. Teams are shooting more from beyond the arc. They're shooting a slight touch more shots, but really it's just the value of those shots, bro. It's 30 points. If you shoot 10 threes averaging 106 points per game, that brings you, if that brings you up 30, you're already at 130, 125. You're already in that area. Scoring's ridiculous, and today's players are scoring like people have never seen before. There are more threes being taken. The game is faster. Players are shooting better from the field. It's not more foul calls. It's not a softer game. It's simply much harder to defend players than it used to be, because players now have more at their disposal. They can now go out and shoot long 30-foot threes from the half-court line and not be immediately pulled out of the game. Players can now stay in the game and shoot 40 shots without having a coach being like, hey man, what in the world are you doing? Pass the ball. Players are now able, especially bigs, they're now able to utilize everything that they have under their tree that makes them a great player. Joel Embiid is able to go out to long range and shoot a three. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't limited to being a playmaking guard. He can now be one of the best scorers in the league. LeBron James can be a point guard and a center within the same game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not what used to happen. The game is no longer the defensive stalemate of the 90s and 2000s. The game is now about progressive offense in which teams score 130 plus points per game like it's nothing. Like the Pacers are doing, like the Hawks are doing, like the Lakers are doing, and like the Warriors have been doing over the last 10 years or so. Players have evolved, the game has evolved, and this will not be the last time that we see stat lines that involve 60 points, 70 points, and heck, maybe even 80 and 100 point games. It could possibly happen. But that's a little bit of facts in my take on the scoring uptick. I think players are simply better. I think they have more at their disposal, and I think the game has simply evolved. And if players and people have a problem with that, maybe the NBA can find a way to balance defense. Maybe you can bring back the hip checking or the hand checking rule of the 1990s to kind of balance it out. But I like the way the game is going. I think you should value players becoming more skilled all over the world. Because without that, we don't have a Jokic. Without that, we don't have a Giannis. Without that, we don't have a LeBron. Without that, we don't have all of the amazing, talented players from all over the world in the league today. And I think, all in all, it is better for the NBA to value the skill set and the skill level of these players, man. It's amazing. But, of course, that's going to mark the end of this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notification bells, help me out a little bit. Without further ado, I'm going to end this video. Thank you for watching.